You ever notice how we have all these familiar expressions floating around? They're supposed to make life easier, but half the time they don't even make sense. Take a sleep like a baby. Really? Babies wake up crying every 2 hours, soaking wet, and demanding food at 3 a.m. That's not peaceful sleep. That's combat duty. Or the customer is always right. No, they're not. If the customer was always right, every store in America would be out of business because half the customers don't know what the hell they want. They're just wandering around saying, "I'm just looking." Yeah? Well, I'm just working. Get out. And how about it's always in the last place you look? Of course it is. Once you find it, you stop looking. Who the hell keeps searching after they found it? I found my keys under the couch, but I kept on looking, just in case they were somewhere else too. See, these familiar expressions are like little time bombs of stupidity. People repeat them without thinking. And after a while, they don't mean anything at all. They're just lazy shortcuts for a conversation nobody really wants to have. So the next time somebody throws one of these at you, don't nod politely, call them out. Call them out. Say, "That's not wisdom, that's just a bumper sticker." You ever notice how people throw around these so-called familiar expressions, see, like they're pearls of wisdom? Yeah, familiar expressions. The crap we repeat over and over without ever stopping to think if it makes a lick of sense. People love them because they make you sound like you know something when really you're just recycling garbage somebody else said 100 years ago. Take a sleep like a baby. That's a good one. People actually say this with a straight face. I slept like a baby. Really? You woke up every 2 hours screaming, covered in your own piss? That's the baby experience. That's what babies do. If that's what your night looked like, you didn't sleep well. You survived the hostage situation. Babies don't sleep peacefully. They conduct sleep terrorism. But people just say it because it's familiar. Then there's other customers always right. Oh, sure. Whoever came up with that one never worked retail. You ever deal with customers? Half of them don't know what they're talking about, and the other half want to return something they bought 6 years ago without a receipt. The customer is always right. No, the customer is always confused, demanding, or standing in front of the counter asking dumb questions. Nah. Do you sell batteries here? No, ma'am. This is a battery store, but we only carry bananas. The customer is always right is a phrase designed to make miserable workers swallow their rage while some nitwit insists they deserve a discount because their cousin once dated a guy who knew the manager. And what about this classic? It's always in the last place you look. Well, of course it is. Who keeps looking after they found the thing? I found my wallet under the couch cushion, but then I kept searching for another hour because I enjoy frustration. People say it like it's deep wisdom. No, it's not wisdom. It's the obvious result of logic. You stop looking when you find it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Congratulations on being part of the human race. Ever hear, a better safe than sorry? Another brainless gem. You can't be safe from everything. If you tried, you'd never leave the house. You'd never eat. You'd never breathe. Because the air is full of poison anyway. A better safe than sorry is the motto of people who never take risks and then wonder why their life looks like a rerun of last week's oatmeal. Sometimes you gotta be sorry because at least it means you tried something, and how about a time heals all wounds? No, it doesn't. Time just makes the pain dull enough that people stop talking about it. But the wound is still there, festering under the surface. You break someone's heart. You think 10 years later they're just magically fine. No. They just stopped bringing it up because everyone around them got sick of hearing about it. Time doesn't heal all wounds. It just buries them under more crap. Then there's a money can't buy happiness. Yeah, maybe not, but it can buy a jet ski. You ever see somebody frowning on a jet ski? Doesn't happen. Money can't buy happiness is the kind of line poor people use to make themselves feel better about being broke. Of course, money doesn't fix everything, but it sure makes misery more comfortable. If you're gonna be depressed, it's better to be depressed in a beach house with a margarita than in a basement apartment eating instant noodles. People love, everything happens for a reason. Really? Everything. Tell that to the guy who got hit by a falling coconut while taking a vacation picture. What's the reason? Coconut justice? Sometimes things just happen. There's no cosmic script. The universe isn't sitting around thinking, you know what Dave needs today? A car accident. That'll teach him to appreciate sunsets. No, it's chaos. Things happen because they happen, and human beings are desperate to explain it away with a cute little slogan. And you've got to live and learn. Oh yeah, I know plenty of people who live and don't learn a damn thing. Some people just live and live and live, making the same dumb mistakes year after year. They're not learning. They're just repeating the same errors with new shoes on. Live and learning assumes people actually improve with time. Most don't. Most just get older and crankier, and now they shout at the TV louder than they used to. All good things come to those who wait. Yeah, tell that to the guy who waited for his lottery numbers to hit and then died before the drawing. Waiting doesn't guarantee anything. Good things come to those who hustle, cheat a little, and get there before everybody else. Waiting usually just gets you stuck in traffic while somebody else eats the last donut. You ever hear, history repeats itself? That's not a saying, that's a warning label. Of course it repeats itself because nobody's paying attention. But people love to toss it out like it's an insight. History repeats itself. No stupid people repeat history, and we've got an unlimited supply of those. And then there's my favorite, at the end of the day. People throw this into every sentence to sound important. Well, at the end of the day, no. At the end of the day, it's nighttime. That's it. Stop pretending it's profound. You're not wise. You're just stalling while your brain takes a smoke break. Familiar expressions. Little linguistic leftovers reheated and served until nobody tastes them anymore. They're not wisdom. They're not guidance. They're just empty calories for conversation. And the more you notice them, the more you realize half of what comes out of people's mouths is just prepackaged nonsense. People don't think about what they're saying anymore. They just repeat words and phrases like broken machines. You ask somebody how they're doing, and 9 times out of 10 you get the same answer. I can't complain. Well, sure you can. Everyone can complain. In fact, some people make it their full-time job. But no, they just give you the pre-programmed answer. It's not communication, it's an automated message. People talk like voicemail now. Predictable, lifeless, and unoriginal. You see, language is supposed to be this powerful tool. It's how we share ideas, connect with each other, express real thoughts. But instead, most people use it like they're on autopilot. They're not speaking, they're repeating. And they repeat the same expressions over and over without even asking themselves what they mean. That's why conversations feel so damn boring. Nobody's really talking, they're just passing slogans back and forth. Take the classic, how are you? The most empty question in the English language. Nobody cares how you are. It's just a sound we make before we start saying what we really want to say. How are you? You answer, fine, how are you? And they say, fine. That's it. That's the whole exchange. Nothing happened. You didn't actually tell them how you are, and they didn't listen anyway. But we keep doing it every day, every hour, because that's the script, that's what we're taught. That's communication in America. Play your part, hit your marks, and don't you dare break character by telling the truth. Or what about a have a nice day? Another useless piece of verbal confetti. The cashier at the grocery store says it to 500 people a day. Do you think they care if you have a nice day? Of course not. They just want you to get out of the line so the next schmuck can swipe their credit card. But people say it anyway because it's easy, because it's familiar, because they're not thinking, and you don't even register it anymore. Have a nice day. It goes in one ear and out the other. Nobody ever stops and says, you know what, I think I will have a nice day. Thank you, cashier. No, it's just words bouncing off walls. Then there's the all-purpose and no problem. People throw this one around like it's holy water. You thank them for something and instead of you're welcome, it's a no problem. A thanks for holding the door. A no problem. A thanks for helping me move that couch. A no problem. But sometimes it was a problem. That couch threw out your back, but people don't think about that. They just spit out the phrase that's been drilled into their heads. Because in this culture, it's not about meaning, it's about rhythm. Keep the sentences moving. Keep the script alive. Don't let the silence creep in. And silence, that's the enemy, isn't it? That's why people keep repeating familiar expression. They're afraid of silence. They can't stand 5 seconds of nothing, so instead of thinking about something interesting to say, they grab the nearest cliché off the shelf. It is what it is. That one's a classic. It is what it is. Well, no shit, it's... What else could it be? It's the verbal equivalent of shrugging your shoulders. People use it when they've got nothing real to contribute, but they still want to fill the space. Think about at the end of the day. That's another space filler. Well, at the end of the day, it's dark outside. That's all it means. But people keep stuffing it into conversations like it's some profound insight. They don't even know they're saying it half the time. Their mouth just spits it out while their brain takes a coffee break. The problem with all these phrases is that they keep us from actually thinking. They're like shortcuts for lazy minds. Instead of wrestling with an idea, instead of saying something honest or original, people just grab a cliché. It's easier, it's faster. And nobody calls them on it, because everyone else is doing the same thing. You toss out a cliché, I toss out a cliché, and boom, we've had a conversation. Except we didn't. We just traded verbal junk food. Empty calories, nothing nourishing. Ever notice how politicians are masters of this? They don't talk, they recite. We need to move forward. We must come together. We're fighting for the future. You ever actually hear them say something real? No, it's all word salad made of clichés. And people eat it up because it sounds familiar. Familiar is comforting. Doesn't matter if it's meaningless as long as it feels safe. Even in relationships, people lean on this stuff. It's not you, it's me. You've heard that one, right? That's the go-to breakup line for cowards. They don't want to think about what they're actually feeling, so they grab the stock phrase from the breakup manual. It's not you, it's me. Of course it's you. That's why they're leaving. But people would rather sound polite than honest. This is what happens when we stop thinking before we speak. We end up with a language that's clogged with repetition. It's like spam email for your ears. Words that don't carry meaning anymore, just sound. And after a while, the sound is all we notice. The brain checks out, the mouth keeps moving. And society congratulates itself for communicating. But real communication, real language, takes effort. You have to think. You have to mean what you say. That's hard for people because meaning requires attention, and attention is in short supply these days. It's easier to repeat what you've heard 1,000 times than to dig into your own head and find something real. That's why familiar expressions survive. They're not tools of wisdom. They're tools of laziness. And we're all guilty of it, because nobody wants to be the weirdo who actually thinks before speaking. So what do we do instead? We lean on the crutches. Hang in there, everything will work out. Oswe, only time will tell. Yeah, time will tell, but only if you're paying attention. Most people aren't. They're too busy repeating the same 10 phrases over and over, like parrots who learn English but never learn to think. That's why I say, listen closely next time you're in a conversation. Count how many real thoughts you hear and how many recycled expressions fly by. I guarantee the clichés will outnumber the actual ideas 10 to 1. It's not because people are dumb, it's because people are lazy. Thinking is work, and most people would rather outsource it to the nearest familiar expression. It's easier, it's safer, and it keeps the silence away. You ever notice how people get nervous when you make jokes about serious things? They say, oh, you shouldn't joke about that. Really? Why not? Joking about it is usually the only honest way to talk about it. Humor is truth with a punchline. It's the flashlight you shine into the dark corners where people don't want to look. And that's why it bothers them. They're not mad at the joke. They're mad at the truth hiding inside the joke. See, when you tell people the truth straight up, they shut down. They cross their arms, they get defensive. They argue with you. But if you put the truth in a joke, suddenly they laugh. They laugh because for a second their guard drops. And in that split second, the truth sneaks in through the back door. That's the real purpose of humor. It bypasses the bullshit filter. It gets around the walls people build to protect themselves from reality. Think about religion. You can't walk up to somebody and say, hey, that story about the talking snake, that's nonsense. They'll fight you on it. They'll get angry. But if you say, hey, snake talked to a naked woman and she believed him, sounds like the world's worst fairy tale, now they laugh. And while they're laughing, they realize you just said the same thing they would have argued about 5 seconds earlier. The joke didn't change the truth, it just made it safe to admit it. Or politics. People are so tribal about politics, they treat it like a sports team. You say something critical about their side, they act like you spit on their mother. But if you make a joke about it, they'll laugh even while they're mad. You point out that every politician is just a salesman in a suit, and you phrase it as, they're all selling the same crap with a different label. And people laugh. Deep down, they know it's true. They've known it for years, they just don't want to face it. Humor forces them to face it without making them feel like idiots for believing the lie in the first place. And it works on the little everyday lies, too. The ones we all live with, like work. You tell somebody your job is meaningless and your boss doesn't care if you live or die. As long as you show up Monday morning, they'll argue with you. They'll say, oh, no, my work is important. But if you joke about how we spend our lives filling out forms and answering emails that nobody reads, they laugh. And they know. They know their work is mostly busy work. They just can't admit it to themselves without a laugh to soften the blow. That's why jokes about clichés, about these familiar expressions people use, work so well. Because everyone already knows they're stupid. They just never thought about it. You say, it's always in the last place you look. And people laugh. Because of course it is. The joke is just the truth stripped of its camouflage. Humor is also the best way to show how absurd the world really is. If you tell people the world is unfair, they shrug. If you tell them the world is run by idiots, they nod but don't care. But if you paint a picture of those idiots arguing over who gets the armrest on a crashing airplane, people laugh. And in that laugh, they see the truth. Humor takes the everyday madness of the world and holds it up like a funhouse mirror. And when people laugh at the reflection, they're admitting the madness is real. The beauty of humor is it makes honesty tolerable. Most people don't want honesty. Honesty is heavy. It's uncomfortable. It means you might have to change something or admit you were wrong. But if you sugarcoat honesty with a laugh, suddenly it goes down easier. It's like hiding medicine in peanut butter for a dog. The dog licks it up without realizing he just swallowed something bitter. That's what humor does. It hides the bitterness in laughter. And laughter itself is proof of recognition. You don't laugh at something unless a part of you recognizes it as true. That's why comedians don't really make things funny. They reveal what was already there. The world is already funny, already absurd, already ridiculous. All a comic does is point at it and say, well, look at this nonsense. And people laugh because they've seen it too, but they never stop to really look at it. Humor is also dangerous because it exposes hypocrisy. People hate having their contradictions pointed out. They want to believe they're consistent, logical, moral, but a good joke can show in 10 words how full of shit they are. You joke about people who say you support the troops while cutting veterans' benefits, and the room laughs, but the truth lands too. That's the power. You couldn't give a speech about that hypocrisy without half the room walking out. But you make it a joke, and they stay, and they laugh, and they can't unhear the truth that came with it. And here's the part most people miss. The reason humor is so strong is because it comes with no instructions. A serious speech tells you what to think. A sermon tells you what to believe. A lecture tells you what to do. But a joke just throws the truth into the air and lets you catch it if you want. That's why it sneaks past your defenses. It doesn't force you, it invites you. You laugh, and then later, maybe in the car ride home, you think, damn, that joke was actually right. That's the delayed fuse of humor. The truth explodes later, when you're alone, when you least expect it. That's why people get scared of comedians. Not because the jokes are offensive, but because the jokes reveal too much. Politicians, priests, bosses, they all hate humor because humor makes people doubt. Doubt is the enemy of control. As long as people are repeating the same old lines and cliches, they're easy to manage. But the moment they laugh at the absurdity of it all, they're free. That's why humor will always be dangerous and why it will always be necessary. So the next time somebody tosses one of these tired old expressions at you, don't just nod along. Don't let the words slide by like elevator music. Stop for a second, think about what they're really saying, and notice the nonsense underneath. Because half the time these phrases aren't wisdom, they're just autopilot. And if we keep running on autopilot, we'll never notice how ridiculous life really is. That's why I pick these things apart, because once you laugh at them, you can't unhear the truth hiding in them. Familiar expressions aren't familiar because they're true. They're familiar because people stopped questioning them. And the day you stop questioning is the day you stop thinking.